Some time ago, I was speaking to this white dude about Jesus. He ran up to me trying to convince me to come to his church. However, of course, it wasn't happening for him. And he was trying to engage in dialogue with me that he wasn't even equipped to argue. However, I explained to him that the first ship that came to pick up slaves that went to Africa was the good ship Jesus, loosely translated Jesus of Lebrec. And no matter what, the name Jesus always came with trouble for black folks. Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus Christ Superstar, it didn't matter. It got millions of people killed. And so the so-called Bible was commissioned several times. And that lie, as it was repeated over and over again until some fools believed that Euro trash nonsense. King James, and I told him that King James was homosexual, of course. And that's documented in places like Terrence McLaughlin's Dirt and A.L. Ross's Homosexuals in History. Man, they always got revisions of the Bible going on somewhere. They got a gay revision of the Bible with Adam and Steve and Samantha and Delilah and gay disciples. And then you can argue that the Bible was inspired by who? Anyway, so I gave him some facts, okay? If you look at, like, say, notoriously false gospels, like, let's say the stuff that Paul is alleged to have written, right? Paul lived in the same city as Jesus, but he never laid eyes on him, right? Small town, this guy's raising the dead, performing all these miracles, two guys that are Christian, but yet they never thought to link up. Paul never wanted to meet him, right? Makes no sense. Now, look at Jesus' trial, for example. Nobody came forth to speak on his behalf. This guy healed the sick, made the deaf hear, made the blind see, but no one said a word in his defense. Even Lazarus, he raised from the dead. You would think Lazarus would have popped up and said, "Hey man, I was dead. This guy woke me up." But it didn't happen. The people who wrote the Gospels, they didn't know anything about Jewish law at the time. They didn't do their homework. Now check this out. Here's an article. It said that if the Jews spent 40 years wandering the desert after fleeing Egypt, they would have left evidence, traces in the sand, but nothing suggests they were ever there. That was from Time magazine, December 1995. And you go with all the false prophets like, let's say Moses. Moses killed an African, according to the Bible, and buried him in the sand, with God's blessing, of course. And then God gave him the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai, right? Well, actually, they were just, like I explained to him, they were just 147 negative confessions of the black Egyptians of about 4100 BC. They were stolen by the Jews from the book of Coming Forth by Day. But let's say, talking about Jesus, who was Jesus' father? I asked him that. So we know from the Bible itself that it wasn't Joseph, right? But in the Jewish encyclopedia or in the Talmud and all these, the Jews are calling Jesus' mother, Mary, a whore. Say he was a bastard being boiled in hell with hot feces. I mean, that's kind of harsh, and that's coming from the Jews. And these are the same people who wrote the Bible. Because the Jews don't tell you that. They don't let you look at their old doctrine or any of that, okay? In fact, they called Gentiles, all non-Jews, said that they didn't have a soul and they were going to burn in hell anyway. Now, if you look at the book of lineage, as I was saying a minute ago about Jesus' father, okay, Well, you have to establish the firstborn. That's the way the Bible is. They talk about all the male children, right? So it says in Matthew 1:16 says Jesus' granddad was Jacob. But then when I turn to Luke 3:23, it says Jesus' granddaddy was a guy named Heli. Well, which are we to believe? Now, if the Bible is God's word, I mean, genealogical mistakes like that, they shouldn't be in there. And it happens the same with David's lineage. You get to a certain part where he got two different, I think it's grandfathers as well. But anyway, so let's take the story of the flood, as I explained to him. Okay? The flood was a story that I heard before in the Epic of Gilgamesh, and then in Egyptian folklore, as it is, an Egyptian goddess named Hathor flooded the world with her menstrual blood, and they have a picture that's carved on one of the walls of the pyramids that's, goes back thousands of years, with ships being turned over because blood is just coming out of the woman, But Jesus' story was plagiarized from Joseph, the story of Joseph with the 12 brothers with the cape of many colors and all that. Jesus had 12 disciples. Joseph had 12 brothers, He was sold out by his brother Judah, and Jesus was betrayed by Judas. Jesus was sold for 30 pieces of silver, and Joseph was sold for 20 pieces of silver. And, they both started their careers or their lives at 30. Okay, check this out. So when I got down to Cain and Abel, I explained to him that Cain killed Abel and God put a mark on him and said, I put this mark on you so that nobody will kill you. And then he banished him to the land of Nod where he got married. So I said, well, who was going to kill him? And I asked him, who in the hell did he marry? Who were the people in the land of Nod? If Adam and Eve and those two, Adam, Cain, and Abel, were only two here, it makes no sense. Of course, people and him, Christians and their pastors, none of them really have an answer for that. One preacher told me, well, God multiplies people whenever he wants, so he just waves his hand and multiplies people. It was bullshit. Anyway, the Sphinx, let's say the Sphinx in Egypt, that's over 10,000 years old at least. But they said the Bible is no more than 2,000 or 3,000 years old, if that. Most of it was written during King James' time when he commissioned it. Over the years, Jews literally got ran out of over a dozen countries. People don't know that, for making up a whole lot of stuff they were doing. You have to look that up. They were ran out of a lot of countries. It wasn't just Egypt. And so we get to the part where we say that I am the Lord thy God and a jealous God. And then say, well, who was God jealous of? That's a human emotion. He was jealous of a golden calf. So like I told him, he's a Christian because of the Catholics. Catholics are the original Christians. Christianity was once a mandatory religion throughout, certain parts of the world. And it was brought into existence through murder and torture. Even Martin Luther, he ran for his life and he started the Protestant church, followed by a whole lot. And now Martin Luther was a guy, this guy started all that stuff, but he was a man who used to eat his own shit, like literally. And he wondered why everybody else didn't do it. And quite frankly, several other people followed him. They don't list their names, but they started eating their own feces as well. Yeah, Martin Luther, the guy who started Christianity, pretty much. So all the nonsense about being baptized and all that stuff was all stolen from Africa, Egypt, Kemet, whatever you want to call it. And they in fact, they had hieroglyphs of circumcision on the tomb of that guy, what was his name? Akhenaten of the 6th dynasty, I think it was. And that was over 2,000 years ago. It depicts the royal family being circumcised, But when the Ashkenazim Jews came out of that Caucasus Mountains, man, they just stole everything. And that's where they came from. They didn't have a God or anything. They made up their own, you see. So